We start with children from where we had stopped with a little recapitulation of the concepts of OOPS that we had done. Objects, classes. Objects are the entities, runtime entities that are created. Class, a user-defined data type which binds the data and the functions together. And the OOPS concept are usually taken care by the points like data encapsulation, data abstraction, polymorphism, inheritance, etc. Okay, these were the points that we had explained. Now, how are all these OOPS concept taken care of when we write it down in a program? So for that, we need to see a general declaration how a class is made. As we had already discussed, class is a structure. Okay, this structure will hold data and functions together. This is a user defined data type that has been created. It is going to hold both the data and the function. Where the data will be hidden from the external use. All these concepts will be more clear to you as we move forward. But you have to keep these points in mind, what we are saying, that the data is hidden because of encapsulation that we have to keep in mind because we're using OOPS. Okay, so the class will hold both data and functions, but the data will be hidden from the external use. This is what we have to remember. Now, as here we can see, this is how the class is declared. You write down the keyword class and you give a class name given by the user, followed by the curly brace, and this private and public are the access specifiers or visibility labels, they are also called as, which will differentiate that what kind of data is going to be hidden and what kind of data will be there for the public use. So for that purpose, we use the specifiers as private and public. We have one more that we'll do later. But abhi ke liye, private and public are the visibility labels or the access specifiers that we are supposed to use. Private is a default visibility label. That means even if you do not use the access specifier, it will be considered that it is private. And variable declaration. Variables in class are called as, simple वैसे ही declare करना है, the way we used to declare in the programs that we have learned, int a. But here that a that we have declared will be called as a data member, not as a simple variable. That data member belongs to the class that we have given the name. All right. And public may will give the public declaration. So here our class specification has two parts, children. One is where we are declaring. Variable declaration हो रहा है, function declaration हो रहा है. So all kind of declaration is being done. And the second part is where we'll be defining. That is a later stage. So the first stage we'll see here is where we are declaring our class. The class will have variables and functions. Variables are called as data members. Functions are called as member functions. And after the declaration of the class, if you can see here, we close the curly brace and we terminate the class with the help of a semicolon. This we have not seen earlier. Okay, so this you have to remember that the class will be terminated with the help of a semicolon. The body of the class is enclosed within the curly brace, which is followed by the class name. Okay. Now, to further see, this is how the declaration of the class looks like. The private में हम लोग variable declarations and function declarations करते हैं, और public में भी we do the word declarations. But data members are called as variables and functions are called as member functions, and together they are all called as class members. Okay. Now there'll be a question in your mind that in the earlier slide I had just written variable declaration under private and public के नीचे function declaration लिखा था. You can have a function declaration private also and public also, but private means, look here, if I make data members, look on the left side of the screen, data members and member functions, if they are made private, they can only be accessed from within the class, no external use. Okay. And if they are made public, then the data members and the member functions can be accessed from the outside of the class also. So we usually do what? Usually this is the routine that is followed is कि data members को हमेशा private रखा जाता है and member functions को always public रखा जाता है, so that member functions can be used to be accessed from outside the class also. Only then our class will be executed. अगर आप member functions को भी private कर देंगे तब आपकी class के अंदर ही वो use हो सकता है. It will not be helpful to the program, will not be helpful in any way. See here, now look at the right hand side of the class. ये देखो, private में data members और data and functions अगर आ गए हैं तो not accessible from outside the class. और data and functions अगर outside class आ गए हैं तो they can be accessed. But public members can access the private members of the class. This is a very important point. तो इसलिए डेटा को ऑलवेज इनकैप्सुलेटेड रखना है एज प्राइवेट एंड फंक्शन को ऑलवेज पब्लिक रखना है, सो दैट these functions use this data and hence this function can be accessed from outside of the class. Children, I know without seeing the program, looking at the program, we cannot understand the concept of inside and outside of the class. But it is very important to first fit in your brain this concept that there is something called as outside of the class and there is something called as inside of the class. See, where this, we have always put it in a box, which means this is the class. क्लास के अंदर हमने कुछ प्राइवेट डेटा बनाया है और कुछ पब्लिक डेटा बनाया है. दिस प्राइवेट डेटा कैन रोम ओनली इनसाइड दिस बॉक्स. दैट मीन्स ओनली whatever is inside the box can access my private data. And if I make something public, then inside this box and from outside also I can access, but that too with the help of only the entity of that class, that means the object. ठीक है, तो इतना easy नहीं होगा, इसलिए this concept is called as encapsulation. What did we mean by the word encapsulation? Data abstraction, क्या बोला था हमने? It is to represent the essential features but will not include any background details. That means आपका function चलेगा लेकिन क्या data है, what data it is using, how is it being used, उसकी जानकारी outside the class will not be provided because my data will be private. Okay, so very important concept is my class is a structure which will have two access specifiers, private and public. Under private, I will always write my data members. and under public I will always write my member functions. Only if I accept some member functions, if I don't want them to be accessed from outside the class, they can be written inside the private section of the class. ठीक है, बहुत ही ज्यादा important point है ये. Now see the example of declaring a class. अब just keep in mind the syntax that we had given. We had written class, class name. तो यहाँ पे class name क्या है हमारा? Employee. Curly braces open. This is the body of the class. Private के अंदर आप देखो सिर्फ variables को declare किया है. Now we will not use the term variables here. We'll use the term data members. So what are the data members of my class? Name, which is an array, age, which is int, and salary, which is of data type long. और पब्लिक में मेरे दो फंक्शंस हैं, गेट डेटा, पुट डेटा. ये मेरी क्लास है. ठीक है, इस क्लास को अगर आप रन करोगे तो कुछ भी आउटपुट नहीं आएगा, बिकॉज दिस इज जस्ट अ स्ट्रक्चर दैट हैज बीन क्रिएटेड which includes both the data and the functions. You cannot execute this program. This is not a program, complete program, जब तक आपका main नहीं होगा. Because जब आप hash include in write करते हो, when you write down that, it searches for the main program. और यहाँ हमारा main तो है ही नहीं है. So this is not a complete program, children. Don't write this down and try executing it. इसका कुछ आउटपुट नहीं आने वाला है. ये सिर्फ एक स्ट्रक्चर है. जैसे आप int name लिख के, सॉरी int age लिख के अगर आप एग्जीक्यूट करोगे, will there be any output? No. Similarly here I have created a class जिसके अंदर I can ask for a name also, age also, and the salary also through the functions get data, and I can print them with the help of the functions put data. Okay, so this is just an example of how the body of the class can be declared using the syntax that we had talked about earlier. अब इसमें क्या देखना है हमने कि ये जो data members हमने देखा, they have been declared, functions also have been declared, but functions can only be executed if I have the body of the functions. यहाँ पे सिर्फ declaration हुआ है functions का. Where is the body of the function? So the next thing that we'll see here is that if I want to declare the functions also, what do I do? अब ये हमारा डेटा मेंबर्स हैं. देखो प्राइवेट में int id char name और member functions है get void data, sorry void get data, void display. ठीक है, पब्लिक में मैंने दो अपने फंक्शंस लिखे गेट डेटा एंड डिस्प्ले, और डिस्प्ले का मैंने डेफिनेशन भी दिया है आईडी और नेम को सी आउट करो. बट गेट डेटा से डेटा लेंगे तो ही सी आउट होगा ना. ठीक है, सो ओनली वन फंक्शंस बॉडी हैज बीन डिक्लेयर्ड डिफाइंड हियर, गेट डेटा को डिफाइन नहीं किया है. सो द what here I want to tell you is that the functions, the data members, ठीक है, यहाँ पे data members की definition ले लेते हैं पहले. The variables declared inside the class are known as data members. Private data of a class can be accessed through the member function of that class. Please write down this line 5 times so that you remember. The private data of a class can be accessed only through the member functions of that class. Okay, if you go back, these are the private data members, id and name. और इनको मैं id और name को मैं बहुत easily अपने display function में ले रही हूँ, यूज कर रही हूँ. Why? Because display is a member function of the same class where I have declared the data members of the same class. तो ये ID और name किसको access है? सिर्फ only get data and display. This is what my second line says. The private data, ID or name, can be accessed only through the member functions of that class. हमारे member functions कौन है? Get data or display. So my private members can only be accessed through two member functions in this case that we have seen the example. ठीक है? This is what we want to explain here. Member functions की जो definition है वो inside the class भी कर सकते हैं, outside the class भी कर सकते हैं. The example that we saw was inside the class. हम लोग class के अंदर ही हमने उसका definition दे दिया. What if I want to declare it outside the class? We'll see that also. Inside the class में आपने क्या करना है? Definition को प्रोटोटाइप से रिप्लेस कर देना है. दैट मींस वी डू नॉट रिक्वायर अ प्रोटोटाइप वाली लाइन हम लोग स्किप कर सकते हैं. वी कैन स्ट्रेट अवे राइट डाउन द फंक्शन ऑफ दैट बॉडी ऑफ दैट फंक्शन. ठीक है? एंड हियर इट इज सेइंग that if it is a function defined inside the class, we call it as an inline function. So inline functions की जो भी हमारी limitations है, all those limitations are for the functions which are defined inside the class. What if this is the general format of inside the function जैसे हमने देखा. ठीक है children? There it was void. तो यहाँ पे हमारा void नहीं है. यहाँ पे get data में arguments हैं. तो these arguments x and y they belong to get data. तो x and y जो get data को belong करते हैं, they cannot be printed because they need to have the values of the data members. ठीक है? क्योंकि ये तो local variables हैं. तो local variables के पास value आएगी number के through, which is the number and price के through, which are the data members of the class. ठीक है? Now defining the function outside the class. Outside the class के लिए we declare it inside the class and outside the class. You require a proper function body and a syntax. We'll see that syntax before children because this theory will only be understood. Show you the example. ये देखो. Data type of the class name, 4 dots, function name, and followed by the parenthesis function का definition. तो data type return type हो गया, class name हो गया, the class to which the member function belongs, and function name is the name of the member function. और function name का definition है, and these 4 dots are called as scope resolution operator. To understand, ने सिर्फ फंक्शन का नाम दिया और मेंबर फंक्शन को डिफाइन कर दिया. Function name will be identified with the help of only the class name. Teaching class 12D, I am inside the class and I make one student stand up and I say, get up, tell me your name. I will not say to which class you belong to because I know I am in 12D, so that child is also from 12D. But if I am sitting in the staff room and there is some child coming in the staff room, I will ask, what is your class? To which class you belong to, then the name of the child. Okay? So when you are outside the class, you need to tell that which class you belong to and then the name of the function. This concept will be more clear, children, with this screen. Now look at the screen that we have. First on the left hand side, outside the class definition, यही दिया था हमने, रिटर्न टाइप, क्लास नेम, स्कोप रेजोल्यूशन ऑपरेटर, फंक्शन नेम, और आर्ग्यूमेंट अगर है तो कोई, void क्लास रिटर्न टाइप, आइटम हमारा फंक्शन का नाम है, स्कोप रेजोल्यूशन, गेट डेटा फंक्शन का नाम है, int a and int b are the local variables of get data. local variables के थ्रू हम लोग नंबर और कॉस्ट में वैल्यूज पुट कर रहे हैं, बिकॉज ये नंबर और कॉस्ट कौन है, डेटा मेंबर्स है, ये बाहर नहीं जाएंगे, ये बाहर नहीं जाएंगे, तो व्हाट विल हैपन, द डेटा विल बी प्रोवाइडेड टू देम. ठीक है, in this lockdown what has happened, we have not gone out, but when we had ordered something from outside, online हमने कुछ ऑर्डर किया है, तो जिस भी साइट से आपने ऑर्डर किया है, फ्रॉम दैट साइट a delivery person has come and has given you the material, your data. तो ये नंबर और कॉस्ट हम लोग हैं जो बाहर नहीं जा रहे हैं, और ए और बी कौन है, डिलीवरी पीपल, जो बाहर से डेटा लाएंगे और हमें प्रोवाइड करेंगे. ठीक है, दिस इज द केस इन द क्लास, बिकॉज क्लास में डेटा मेंबर्स आर ऑलवेज प्राइवेट. what you have to see is the syntax when you are defining it outside the class, you are defining it inside the class. अब inside the class देखो, हमारी क्लास कौन है, आइटम, नंबर और कॉस्ट डेटा मेंबर्स हो गए. चिल्ड्रन, हियर आई हैव नॉट स्पेसिफाइड द, क्या नहीं स्पेसिफाई किया, एक्सेस स्पेसिफायर, विजिबिलिटी, प्राइवेट, बिकॉज आई सेड प्राइवेट इज बाय डिफॉल्ट. ठीक है, तो बाय डिफॉल्ट ये डेटा मेंबर्स हमारे क्या हो गए, प्राइवेट. और पब्लिकली हमने क्या लिया है, गेट डेटा, जो हमारा फंक्शन है, और क्लास फंक्शन को अंदर ही डिफाइन किया है, तो क्लास के नाम के अंदर ही फंक्शन डिफाइन हो रहा है. हियर क्लास के बाहर डिफाइन कर रहे हैं, that is why I require this item to be specified along with the scope resolution operator. This is very important, have to keep in mind when the functions are to be defined outside the class and the functions are to be defined inside the class. Approach, whatever you follow the approach, this is how you have to write. functions होते हैं तो हम उनको inside the class ही लिख लेते हैं. If the functions are big, then we write them outside the class. Nobody will tell you in the question कि function को अंदर लिखना है कि बाहर लिखना है. It is all depending upon you, how you want to write down the functions. But howsoever you write it down, it has to be with the correct syntax like this. Please write this down, practice this class ka declaration and defining of the function inside or outside the class 2 times so that you are acquainted with how to write down the class. क्योंकि इसके आगे हम लोग अब जो programs करेंगे वो सब class के ही programs होंगे. This is how we'll be writing it down. ठीक है, again one more example I got. I had written one more example here. int number 1 number 2 add, these are the 3 data members जो private हैं. publicly हमने get data लिया है inside the class, और show data लिया है वो भी inside the class है. ठीक है, so this is an example of defining the function inside the class. और यहाँ पे एक function inside the class है, एक function outside in declare. So void get data, just a prototype declaration. इसका definition is given outside the class. The class terminates with the help of this symbol semicolon. तो हमें पता लग गया हमारी क्लास खत्म हो गई है. और get data का function definition जो है वो हमने बाहर define किया है. void उसका return type, demo is the name of the class, scope resolution operator, and get data is the name of the function. You can also do it like this. You can ask from the user, or you can do it with the help of passing the values. These are 2 important programs that we have written. practice writing these kinds of program. लिखो, दो बारी लिख के practice करो, so that you understand how to write down the structure of the class. Thank you, children.